Welcome along to the Matchbook Champions League podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, with two in situ this week in Adrian, Clarke and Miguel, Delaney. Now, a lot happened this weekend, but it's Champions League time, Miguel. Quarterfinals delivered well and truly. We've got four, and as I was saying to you off air, they're refreshing ties in the sense there's no English teams, but how are you sort of feeling leading into it in terms of, like, your journalist storylines? What is there to take heading into the next 2 weeks?
I mean, the biggest, and I expect you'll see this over every English newspaper in the next 24 hours, including on the UK Independent, is there's no English teams, but the main semi-final, I'd say, is framed by two English players, Kane v Bellingham, especially given that the stars of their teams. That's very much the narrative going in. One of England's, I suppose you'd say, they're two defining players ahead of the Euros, will be at Wembley for the Champions League final. And it still feels like, as we said before the quarterfinals, as we get to the point where all these kind of big clubs kind of concentrate together, it still feels like the winner is coming from this side of the draw, Bayern, Madrid. And there's so many European Cups on this side of the draw historically, whereas on the other side, there's one, which is Dortmund's 97. You would say overall, probably Dortmund have benefited from the look of the draw to a degree, as well as their own quality, but the look of the draw to a large extent to get this far. And so PSG, who of course are almost their most stripped down and streamlined squad, really since the Qatari takeover in 2011. Yet things have fallen their way a little bit, and they will eye a chance. They've got none, beaten in the final by Bayern in 2020. Could have a replay of that. Yeah, and it all feeds into two very different ties. Yeah, but quite engaging ties.
Yeah, I know. I'm really looking forward to the two of them again, engaging, different, no English teams. But Adrian, it is hard to get away from the Kane Bellingham thing. As an Irishman, I'm actually not sick of it going into this game. I'm actually enjoying the storyline of Kane. Bellingham both went left England for different reasons. Yeah. But Jude Bellingham in particular, I'm really impressed with the way he's been managed in terms of staying out of England, and there's just that extra pressure playing in England. It's not the English media's fault, but there's that extra pressure. Every touch is analysed a little bit more than La Liga, obviously.
Oh, they're two supremely impressive players, aren't they? Look, I know that Kane used to play for Tottenham Hotspur, but I've got nothing but respect for his ability, for his career. He's phenomenal, and it's brilliant to see him ripping it up at Bayern Munich, and for Bellingham, he's just a very special player. And yeah, I mean, can you imagine the value on Jude Bellingham if he was ever to come to the Premier League, and hopefully one day he will? I mean, the value in terms of transfer fee will be extraordinary. He is the real deal. So yeah, it's a good time prospect, and it's lovely. I think that we've got two players that have gone outside their comfort zone, gone to different countries for the experience, and of thriving. It's great.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to these games. The outright price is, incidentally, just so people are aware, the Madrid 2.5, PSG 3.65, Bayern Munich 4.1, and Dortmund a big old price at 10.5 if you fancy them to go all the way. All those prices available on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. Invariably will be best price, not just on the outright bets, but all the bets we cover in the markets too. If you're watching on YouTube, just like and subscribe for free. It's the easiest way to keep in touch with the podcast, and on your podcast platform itself. If you can give us a follow, it'll be in your feed as soon as we record live, so that's post-recording. And last thing just to mention, insights.matchbook.com, one of the only podcasts where you can actually have a full recap of bets. We know people are busy in the day-to-day of life, but you can check out a full bet recap if you've missed the podcast, or you just want a recap of what the guys have picked here. So it's the two Champions League semi-finals, but also Europa League and Conference League matches covered by the lads as well. So plenty to get through. Timestamps available in the description. So let's get to it. Bayern Munich versus Real Madrid. We'll take a look at the betting on the Matchbook Betting Exchange. We're betting to an over round of just over 100%, as you can see on screen. Bayern 2.6 favourites to Madrid 2.92. The draw is 3.6. Both teams to score yes, a feature we've seen this year throughout football at 1.62. Yes, heavily favoured in the market. The Asian handicap line is a draw no bet market, essentially, with Bayern slight favs, and over 2.5 goals is 176. So Miguel, take it away. What sort of game are you expecting between these two sides in the first leg? Because the first legs last time in quarterfinals sort of went against what stereotypical first legs do back in the day,
Yeah. Now, possible hostage to fortune here with this again. I think both of these will be much tighter, as you'll probably be able to discern for my two choices, and maybe going against previous patterns. But I think there are explainable reasons for this. One being, I think the dominant theme in this game in Bayern Madrid is basically going to be Ancelotti's approach. I think we're going to see something very close to what he did away to Manchester City. It's been it's basically been how they set up in most of these big Champions League knockout games for the past three, since he's gone back to Real Madrid, really, where it is a very defense-based approach. It's counter-attacking, given they've got so much pace in the team. And I think that will, again, given that Bayern, at least in principle, are a kind of similar sort of setup to Manchester City in the way Tuchel wants, at least how we would idealise playing. I know they were a bit different against Arsenal, but that was away from home, different dynamic. And I just expect this to be a really similar pattern of the game. I don't think Bayern have the tools that City do, despite how we've talked up Kane, just in terms of not the same system. And I think that does feed into what will initially be quite a very, very tactical and constrained first leg. I mean, it's a point Mark has raised in the show before. So much depends on when the first goal comes. That can change things. But in this, I just think Madrid have got so much experience in keeping these games tight. And also on the other side of it as well, even though I think Madrid's response to what they would expect if Bayern will frame it, I think Tuchel will be particularly conscious of the pace of that Madrid team. And I mean, that could shred Bayern in a game like this. So that's why, all in all, I expect a very standoffish game. I'm one of those where they're almost feeling each other out. It's interesting. This is actually a tie that's been played more times than any other in the history of the Champions League. I think it's something like 9, and they've met in the semi-finals more times than, or as many times as any other clubs have met in the knockouts. So they would usually know each other well. They haven't actually met at this age since 2018, and that, I think, they're going to be feeling each other out. Potentially fireworks in the second leg, but for this, I've gone for under 2.5. I think maybe I'll let Adrian take this away later, but I think his thinking might be similar to mine, and you can almost see kind of the way the scoreline goes. But yeah, it feels like under 2.5 just covers a few possibilities there.
Okay, the underdog of the market, as we alluded to at the top, 2.3. Yeah, Adrian, for you, are you expecting a similar-ish game to what Miguel has touched on there?
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I just think it's Tuchel against Ancelotti. I can see it being, like feeling one another out. I think that Bayern will be scared of Real Madrid's pace. I think that Real Madrid, as Miguel has rightly pointed out, have been fairly circumspect in these tough away games in the Champions League. It's why they're unbeaten. They're unbeaten in the competition this season, 10 unbeaten. Bayern's home record has to be respected. I think they're 15 unbeaten in the Champions League at the Allianz. So, will something give, or will this be a tight draw? That might be the way I look at it. Real Madrid are a bogey team for Bayern Munich historically, and they've won on their last 3 visits, believe it or not, to Munich. They have had the upper hand in this fixture previously. Real Madrid rested a lot of players at the weekend: Bellingham, Vinicius, Valverde, Camavinga, the goalie, Rodrigo, Toni Kroos. None of them played, so or none of them started at least. So they'll be in good shape. There are injury doubts for Bayern as well on De Ligt, Lima, and Musiala. Although I believe Gnabry and Sané could come back in, which would be big. So I think Real Madrid come into it in slightly better shape, I've got to say. But the pattern of the game is how I see it. Real Madrid, I don't see them running away with it. They've had a series of 1-goal away wins in the competition this season, including 1-goal wins at Leipzig and Union Berlin. So, if they're going to win, I think it'll only be by 1 goal. I think it could easily end up a stalemate, actually. I'm going to side with Real Madrid because I think they're the better team. I think they've got, they're in a better place. They're favourites for a reason. Historically as well, they've got that advantage over Bayern Munich in the head-to-head. So you can get Real Madrid on plus a quarter. So if it's a draw, we still get paid out a half stakes win, and if they win, it's happy days. So Real Madrid plus a quarter for me, but I wouldn't put anyone off of going for unders.
Yeah, I'm actually leaning the underside of things because I do find it tough to call. But Madrid plus quarter goal 1.8 if you're that way inclined with Adrian. Miguel under 2.5 goals 2.3. Miguel, quick word on Tuchel because busy weekends people tend to miss a bit of news. I mean, there's Bayern petition trying to keep him, 15,000 signatures down Ralph Ragnick, but also heavily linked with United. I'm not maybe heavily linked the wrong word, but Peter Schmeichel seemed to know more than he was letting on and be in sports. But what's your quick thoughts on Tuchel?
I mean, just exactly what you said about the fans there. I'm inclined to think this could end up being a bit of a Xavi situation, where after the announcement they go, things stabilise. And also, and this is related to Manchester United, the manager market is an odd one at the moment because there are very few sure things for big clubs out there. So many have been looking, but it's almost like we're in this transitional generation between coaches where, like, I think I've said this before, about half a decade ago, you had this kind of strand of guaranteed elite managers, Tuchel being one, led by Klopp and Guardiola, obviously, then maybe Conte, Ancelotti, Pochettino was there for a while. I know that's a matter of some debate now, but there was at least that group and managers who'd been around the blocks at kind of Champions League level. We're not seeing that so much now. And a lot of these big clubs, I suppose, if they want to make a change, they have to take a bit of a punt. I mean, as kind of highly rated as Amorim is, it's still Sporting. It's still not one of the major leagues. Similar with Arne Slot. And Xabi Alonso's obviously had this incredible achievement, but he's not moving. So suddenly you do just think, like, as with Barcelona, whether they're thinking a lot of these big clubs would be to stick. So I think that's what could happen with Bayern. With that, of course, pressurised by the Manchester United interest. I don't think Manchester United will stick. I think it's getting to the point where it's just completely unjustifiable. Personally, I would say we actually crossed a point weeks ago. And that's from someone I would have said before. There's enough caveats to kind of give Ten Hag a fair chance, but I just think that there's so few signs that, I mean, like, it's hard to work out what United are, which is, I think, the biggest indictment. And if a group like Ineos are there now scrutinising everything at the club, it's hard to think how to conclude that this, I mean, especially given so much about this is about a clean slate, about different direction, why they stick with the manager. Again, the variable, I suppose, is that manager market. But I think United actually, because it is a new group, they're a bit more flexible on this. The Southgate interest is real. I suppose complicating that is that if it got to it, and I am partly speaking speculatively here, if it got to it in terms of him moving on or taking the United job, he wouldn't be able to take the job until mid-July probably. And like, if England go all the way in the Euros or even get to the final, you're talking about late July, which is really late in the summer. And that could make, I mean, they like Potter as well, but that could leave an opening from Tuchel. I mean, he's certainly someone that there's an existing link there. His pedigree is obvious. And I mean, I suppose for listeners of this podcast, I wouldn't exactly be rushing to put money on it. But
I gotta say, Southgate or Tuchel. I mean,
I know.
I mean, this is
Potter as well. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I like Potter, but there's a clear hierarchy here in terms of who Man United should be going for, and it starts with Tuchel, and then it's Potter, and surely Gareth Southgate is not in the same league.
The only thing I'd say about that, I mean, I agree in terms of kind of pure coaching, but I suppose maybe Tuchel is this kind of perception that he'll come in and kind of arrange your team for a season or two, but he's not necessarily kind of big, grand project manager. Whereas Southgate, just by virtue of what he's done with England and given what Ineos want to do with United, there's almost this sense of kind of like it's a figurehead for the role as much as a head coach. But yeah, it's going to be. I mean, it's still using my gut is that Tuchel will end up staying. I mean, I'm going to Munich tomorrow. Actually, I'm going to. I've got a nice
suss it out.
Got a train journey to Dortmund on the Wednesday.
Class.
So we might pick up a bit on Tuchel tomorrow.
Yeah, do. drop us a message in the WhatsApp. We'll lock in under 2.5 goals, 2.3. But yeah, some fascinating chat on Tuchel, and does the Champions League make a difference? I mean, obviously, it will have a big relevant and big say on his Bayern future, even though it was confirmed he was leaving. Second game, Dortmund versus PSG, another fascinating tie in the Champions League semi-final. Dortmund underdogs at home in the 90-minute mark at 2.9, PSG 2.52. The draw is 3.8. Both teams have scored very short, 1.5 here. The Asian handicap line, draw no bet market again effectively. PSG the Favs at 185 and the goal line 3.5 unders 1.72. Adrian, take it away here. I mean, there's so much going on, as we touched on at the top. Mbappe's final season at PSG, and he's a real opportunity to get to a final.
Yeah, I fancy PSG to overcome Dortmund. I think Dortmund are the weakest of the final four by quite some distance, really. I've backed them in previous rounds to get through, because they've saved a lot of their best performances, Dortmund, for this competition. But just think their luck might run out here. I was looking at the XG. It's incredible. The XG against is averaging 1.8 per game, which across 10 games means they should have conceded 18 goals. They've conceded 8. So there's a difference of 10 there, which is down to the goalkeeper's been brilliant. We know that, but they've also ridden their luck massively. And I think that PSG, have been here before. I was really impressed with what they did against Barcelona. I think that they can cut loose. So, Dortmund aren't reliable. They lost 4-1 against Leipzig at the weekend. That's not great prep. 3 clean sheets at home in their last 15 matches in all competitions for Dortmund. So, you really fancy PSG to score 1 or 2 goals here for sure. PSG's away form is imperious. Last 10 games in all comps, won 9, drawn 1. So they couldn't really be coming in better shape. If you cast your mind back to the group stage, PSG weren't good away from home. They lost at Milan, they lost at Newcastle, drew with Dortmund, but they're a better team now than they were then. So I do lean towards PSG here with Mbappe, someone who's likely to sort of thrive in this environment against that defence. I also fancy goals, so I'm going to pair it PSG with over 2.5. 4 of their last 5 away games have gone over 2.5 for PSG. Obviously, we all know what happened with the Barcelona game. Haven't kept a load of clean sheets. I think just 1 clean sheet in their last 5 as well. So yeah, I can see a few goals here. I think it'll be the more open of the 2 semi-finals, in my opinion. But if it is open, then I think it will suit PSG with Dembele and Mbappe and the other array of forward talent that they've got. So yeah, I'm going to go with PSG and over 2.5, which is a lovely price actually. What we're looking at, 3.4.
Yeah, big old price there, I have to say. Miguel, you're again expecting a cagey enough game. I sort of see elements of it in the first game. This game, I'm not overly sold yet on the unders case.
Yeah, I mean, again, I suppose similar to Adrian to a degree, I was looking at the kind of quarterfinals and that and thinking that this would influence the game. But I think the big variable there, and I suppose it's a difference from Dortmund's previous 2 knockouts so far, is they're home first. And so I think my thinking on that is just guided by, I think Terzic is inherent conservatism. I think that's what will pervade over this game. That's what will kind of mostly influence this game. And also, I suppose, while if you look at, I suppose, Dortmund in Europe this season, because I do always think in these sort of things that there is always there's just a distinctiveness between how you set up in Europe and how you set up at home. Even of course there are broader trends, but it's a different flavor of the games, adds something different. And really, if you look at it, that home knockout game against Atletico, it's basically the outlier in their entire European season. And that was for very specific reasons, because they needed to rescue a tie. And then it kind of became one of those something, again, we've discussed so much in these knockout pods. It became one of those back and forths that European football is prone to now in a more general sense. And just because of kind of the various elements feeding into it, also, let's not forget, they played in the group stage in this, obviously not a similar situation given Dortmund were true, but it was a knockout game for PSG, and they drew 1-1. And that's why my thinking, I mean, I actually haven't put this in, maybe it should be my best bet, but 2-1 draws is, I have to say, is very attractive. And it's why I've actually gone for the same again. I've gone for under 2.5. The other side of that is, again, the Barcelona game became something else, but PSG have been more controlled themselves in Europe this season, which I think kind of feeds into how, from everything you hear as well about how Luis Enrique is trying to build this team. So yeah, taking all that in together, I think this. I'd agree with Adrian. I think this does have the capacity to really open up in the return leg. But for this, and let's not forget as well, the other kind of massive psychological element that kind of weighs over all these ties. It is one round from the final now. That does start to change things.
Okay, yeah, and a pretty decent case. I'm not going to lie, under 2.5 goals, 268. I'm going to stick with my first instinct on this one, though. I'm going to lock in Adrian's PSG and over 2.5 goals. I do think there is that small chance of them opening up Dortmund, but yeah, it could be fascinating. And 1-1 double, I'm sure, will be best price on the match with Betting Exchange. If you check the odds checker grid right now, feel free to do and send your screenshots in. So they're the Champions League games, insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all 4 selections there. Europa League, Conference League time. Let's go, Adrian. I might let you start with the Conference League here, and then I know you and Miguel share same with the Marseille-Atalanta game. But yeah, Aston Villa, really good to start with. Chelsea at least getting into that 2-goal lead, but nearly lost it in the end. So
yeah, I'm going to take the opportunity to oppose Villa. Actually, there's almost an assumption that Unai Emery takes Villa to Conference League glory, and that might happen. And I kind of hope it does, because it'd be lovely for the club to go and win some silverware. I just think this is an awkward tie at home to Olympiacos. The coach that Emery is up against here, Mendilibar, he's the reigning Europa League champion, isn't he, with Sevilla? So this is a guy that knows exactly what he's doing when it gets to the knockout rounds of a major European competition. You know, he's been there and he's done it, and I think it'll be maybe quite a tactical affair. And I've seen a lot of Unai Emery obviously at Arsenal, and he is a coach that worries about the opposition. He really does focus on them and quite a bit, especially in these cup ties. And obviously it stood him in good stead down the years. But I just think that this might not be as straightforward as some people expect. Olympiacos have had a bit of a wild ride to get here, getting past Fenerbahce. I think Maccabi Tel Aviv scored lots of goals. I think El Kabi has scored a few. Podence, who used to be at Wolves, he's there. Stefan Jovetic too. So they've got a decent team. But the main reason that I'm going to go with Olympiacos on a handicap of +1.25 is that Villa, for me, look really tired against Chelsea. It's been a relentless schedule for them. They have a lot of injuries, or they have had a lot of injuries. Emi Martinez is suspended. Now that is massive for me. Emi Martinez is one of the world's best goalkeepers. I know he's one of the world's most big-headed goalkeepers, but he's actually, he's in that position for a reason. And I'm afraid Robin Olsen is not at the same level. That's a big old downgrade. Tielemans is out. They've got a number of injuries. Obviously, Camara is still out as well. I think this is going to be a tighter game. Hibs and Ajax are the only sides that Villa have beaten by 2 goals. And that's the only way we lose our money, by the way, if Villa win by 2 goals or more. Well, in Europe this season at Villa Park, only Hibs and Ajax were in terrible form at the time, have been beaten by 2 or more from 6 home games at Villa. So again, cup semi-final, going with what Miguel said, things might get a little bit cagier. I think the 2 goal, effectively, you're backing on Olympiacos to only lose by 1 or maybe draw the game. I think it's really tempting. So yeah, but at price, we're not quite sure about the price. I think it's going to be about 185, 188 on Olympiacos plus 1.25.
Yeah, lock it in around 186, just letting the markets form there. Yeah, that opposing Villa wasn't on my radar, but Jesus, I completely forgot about the Martinez suspension there too.
Big,
some good stats. Yeah, Jesus, that's huge. It's definitely a downgrade there. Miguel, Marseille versus Atalanta. You guys both agree here on goals. I mean, Atalanta were the story of the quarterfinal and sort of kept the Europa League going, because everyone was thought we were limping to Liverpool, Leverkusen, but it's just sort of ignited the Europa League all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly as you say, the story. I mean, there's been 3 main stories governing the kind of latter stages. One was Klopp, which Atalanta have put an end to. The other side was supposed to be Klopp's successor, Alonso, but that's obviously deviated given he's staying. And then the other is, the surge behind Atlanta. And part of this, I was at the return leg when Atalanta knocked out Liverpool. And okay, they lost the game 1-0. But that's obviously a game state situation, given they were 3-0 ahead. And given the way Gasperini spoke earlier, it's one of those situations where you tend the game like that. And I know you both feel this, many listeners will as well. And suddenly, just because you've been there, you kind of get quite hooked into kind of the story, especially as Atlanta going for what would be only the 2nd major trophy in their history and they're first in 1963. And given how Gasperini sets up, and like he came up with a great quote after the game about how there's no glory without risk. I'm paraphrasing him slightly. And the way they just took to Liverpool in that first leg, it does feel there's this emotional surge in it. That emotional surge does actually, it's one of those situations where it does manifest in games because of the way they play. I think Marseille are a team there for the taking. And just by the nature of the way Atalanta play these games, as well as the fact that they're away first against Liverpool, you can see them opening out this game. I think they could do a number on Marseille, but there is a danger there. So yeah, as Adrian has gone for as well, I'm going for 1.9.
Yeah, 1.9 over 2.5 goals. That is, Adrian.
Sorry.
Same for you. Yeah. Anything to add on the goals line? Because again, just looking at the face of it without too much research yet, it seemed a good bet to me just based on how those first legs went.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think look, Atalanta have scored at least twice in 4 or 5 games away from home in the competition this season. They're going away and scoring lots of goals. Obviously, they got 3 at Anfield. Gasperini's a good coach. They got really good press inside. They'll take it to Marseille, but Marseille, they're in the goals, aren't they? Aubameyang's on fire. I think he's a joint leading scorer in the competition. Aubameyang with 7. And interestingly, in Europe this season, in the Europa League, Marseille at home in that Velodrome, 5 of the 6 games have gone over 3.5. So it's been I think domestically that's not the case. They're not that wild, but in Europe they've been involved in some really interesting games. So I think Atalanta will take it to Marseille like they did Liverpool, and Marseille have the attacking talent to register themselves. So over 2.5 really stood out to me.
Okay, yeah, let's lock that in. 1.9, the price currently on the Match with Betting Exchange. Long shots time, which have been heavily in profit throughout the season. If you had a £20 stake per each of the guys' long shots since group stage match day 1, you would be up £385, believe it or not. So yeah, maybe something that the presenter should be doing more often, putting £20 stake on these long shots. But these couple of correct scores, as Miguel alluded to, I mean, firstly, we are best price on both, so maybe they look very big. But let's start with you, Miguel. Dortmund versus PSG.
Yeah, again, as I said, it does feel like it's there's just a few little factors when I was kind of assessing everything, how this game could go. And I don't just say this because the game in the group stage, or this exact fixture in the group stage, finished 1-1. It's more about, I suppose, balancing, I think, the tension of the tie, the fact we're at least, or if without extra time, 180 minutes from the final, Terzic's conservatism, the nature of first legs, and I think just control that Luis Enrique has developed with Paris Saint-Germain, where I think they have evolved quite impressively. And there's a bigger discussion we could have now about how PSG suddenly look their closest, because although it's not the stars of the last decade, it's something more resembling a team. With of course the other kind of subplot to that, which is more than a subplot really, with this being Mbappe before he goes to Real Madrid, as everyone expects. And taking all that together, it's why I kind of lean towards another tactical game and very conservative, but not so much that we're not going to see openings and chances, because I don't think either side are quite that competent. So all that together, it's why I got a 1-1 just feels such a logical choice.
Yeah, 9.0 Dortmund won, PSG won a Match with Betting Exchange. 8.0, the best price out there in the odds checker grid, but really if you want to get a bet on any of those sports books, it would be 7.5, so huge jump to 9.0. Adrian, 1-1 as well in the other game.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We've both gone for something similar. Yeah, look, drawing both teams to score is 4.5. I mean, I don't see it being 2-2 or 3-3. So to get 7.8 on Bayern Munich 1, Real Madrid 1 feels like a real good price. It's a brilliant jump. They've both got these long unbeaten runs to protect. Obviously, Bayern 15 unbeaten at the Allianz in the Champions League. Real Madrid, unbeaten in the entire competition this season. Fantastic away from home. 2 very canny operators in the technical area, Tuchel v Ancelotti. Yeah, I think I can't see a 0-0 because there's so much attacking quality on show, but I also don't see the game escalating either. So, it sort of fits in with my selection on Real Madrid plus a quarter on the main game. I'm going to go with Bayern 1, Real Madrid 1 at 7.8.
I always think with correct scores, if it's that score with 15 minutes to go, do you fancy it getting home? And I definitely see that. 7.0 odds checker, best price. 7.8 on the match with betting exchange, a huge jump there. Best bet time. Adrian, we'll start with you. Both of you going for a fun bet builder bet here. So you got a bit of joy with Kylian Mbappe. He ripped it to shreds in fairness in the second leg. So good shout, mate. I mean,
I'm going to the well again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only obvious when after the event, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't want to be boring and just pick one that we've already discussed. It's like, actually, what do I really fancy here? And I really fancy Kylian Mbappe to score against Borussia Dortmund. He's got 5 goals in the knockout stages already. He got a brace in San Sebastian against Real Sociedad. He got a brace in Barcelona in the last round. I think he can score again. This is his stage. I think he's the most talented player in the world, probably the best player in the world. And he lives for these moments. This is his time. He's coming into the peak of his career, I'd suggest. And I think he will drive PSG to the final. And I think that he will thrive in this game. He's got eight goals in the Champions League this season already. It's his joint best return. He's going to beat that. He's a top player. So Mbappe to score, and I'm going to go with over 1.5 goals because I don't see it being 1-0 PSG via Mbappe. I think it's either that 1-1 that Miguel's been tipping up, or maybe a win, a 2-1, 3-1 win for PSG. So Kylian Mbappe and over 1.5 goals in the game. It comes out just shy of even money.
Okay, and I think speaking of players, big time players, I mean, you only have to go back to El Clasico and the inevitability of a player not really in the game for a lot of the match, if you can come with me on that, but yet you felt he had a big moment in him, and the goal he scored was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's one of the kind of, not the contradiction of Bellingham's season, but I suppose just a consequence of where he's been played. But I think you're right. Sometimes, and it was a bit like this in the City game as well, where he's not necessarily as involved, but the danger is constantly there. And it's why actually I think that some of the Zidane comparisons are a bit off. I mean, actually, I have to say, I don't really see that comparison at all. Different players. No. But I suppose we're talking in terms of impact. But just because of that, I have to say I was influenced by Adrian's bet here, especially because I was struggling to kind of tease something out that was kind of different. But guided by that, and I think it's something we've said before about Bayern. Tuchel has shored it up structurally, but an issue remains, and that there is a weakness right in front of the defence. They managed to keep Arsenal at bay in the first leg, I suppose, just by really locking up. And then I think Arsenal were just... I think that Arsenal were almost kind of... It was not a case of stage fright, but they weren't ready enough for the game at the Allianz in the quarterfinal in the second leg. Whereas that's not going to be the case for Madrid. I think they will be much more proactive in terms of seeking to exploit those weaknesses with Bayern. And one is right in the centre of midfield, which just happens to be the area where Bellingham arrives from to produce. So if you're kind of looking to kind of tie all these things together, if we're going for a 1-1, if we're going for Bellingham in a big game, and if we're going for where Bayern can be hurt, it does feel like Bellingham to score and over 1.5, which again covers a few possibilities, including a low-scoring game. It does feel like my best bet.
Yeah, 3.0, big price. Jude Bellingham and Kylian Mbappe to be the big players on Champions League night, according to Adrian and Miguel. So we'll see how we get on there. My thanks to them both. We'll be back for the return legs, of course, and myself, Adrian and Mark will be in situ on Thursday as the Premier League title race, European battle and relegation battle all reach their conclusion. InsideStockMatchbook.com. Do check that out during the weekend. Of course, enjoy the Champions League bets, and if you are having a bet on the match with Betting Exchange, enjoy it. Make sure it adds to the occasion, but please do so responsibly. We'll chat to you on Thursday. Bye bye.